on the computer. Good to go. Gotta love Zoom. So
Love it.
I hear the weather down there is not any better than up here.
No, but 10 minutes ago, the sun shined through. It was amazing, and then it's gone.
Well, for anyone that is watching us, I can't really track it while I'm doing this. My name is Anyssa Jane, and this is Mike. I'm gonna try Skrypnek.
Skrypnek, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Once you've said it, you'll never say it wrong again.
We've met a couple of times live and in person, but it's great to be able to not worry about the highway. For those of the people that are watching that aren't from British Columbia, we're in the middle of a huge storm. This is my deck. It's normally you can see out the rails there. It goes over onto Green Lake. It's pretty crazy out there. I drove into the village today and nearly got smucked by somebody who couldn't stop at a stoplight. Not their fault at all. They just, other than we know we should be out driving. So.
Well, I'm an expat Albertan, and I used to laugh when I saw West Coast bad weather, but this is the legit bad storm. This is like prairies type storm. This is bad. So. Everybody stays safe.
Blown up here, so even my back deck that normally is my like private outdoor living room is just, it looks like a big snowbank. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
So tell me more about what you've been doing since the last time I saw you.
Well, thanks for spending some time today to chat. Oh, been very busy. We've spoken a lot over a little bit over the course of the last few months, and really ramping up. One of the things that, I'm like I just said, an expat Albertan after 18 months of living out here in the sea to sky, full time, fully moved, completely engaged and committed to the community, and, also working and doing business across from the sea to sky from, Pemberton to West Van. Mm-hmm. And it's been an absolute wonderful experience. And we've been able to begin to take a foothold in the marketplace. So I just had a great mastermind on Friday last week, and we had 8 people of the clients that I work with here in coaching, and it was an amazing day, and that was half of the people who could have shown up. So it's an incredible thing to know that there's a substance and a willingness and some entrepreneurial spirit out here that is just wanting to learn and wanting to grow and wanting to keep going at it. So it's been great. So 2020. I thought doing all that was going to be amazing, but 2020 became the big, suddenly I've been working with 4 people who were writing their books. I help people in a 6-month book mastery course, and we were midway through with a couple of them, and all of a sudden it dawned on me that I haven't gotten my book done, the last book I was meaning to write. And so I kind of got the fire under my feet and I got going on it. And so I finished it around the beginning of December, middle of December, and now it's just putting all the pieces together, and we're going to launch it at the end of January. So I can't wait to share that with the world. And on top of that, we're just going to push it out for speaking opportunities in North America, as well as expand and continue working with great entrepreneurs and business owners here in the corridor. There's just so many people wanting to do
one of my favorite books behind you, E-Myth, which is an amazing
That's a pretty good, wow. Good eye. It is. It's one of those mandatory readings.
What model are you using with your publishing? Is it self-publishing, or is it the buy $5,000 worth of books? There's a lot of different models out there.
Oh, Anyssa, let me share a little bit with you. I did that. So, my first book, I have my books here. So my first book, Philanthropy and Inspired Process. I think that's backwards. I don't know if it came out forwards. Philanthropy and Inspired Process. So here I am, an investment advisor at the bottom of the crash in 2008, wondering, can I do something different? And I said, well, how do I, instead of hoarding capital for the rest of my career, as long as it'll last, how do I give $1 million away to charity every year? And part of it was working with charities in order to do that, and people who would be considering legacy, right? Yep. Donors and families that might be considering giving their money to charity. And so I tried with the charities, and they said, well, you're the fox in the hen house, go away. We don't trust you. We don't think you're really sincere. We've seen your type before. Yeah. And I had to really understand how I could reach the directors, because they're the people who gave authority to the executive director. The board gave authority so that they would do things, right?
Get past the gatekeepers.
Pardon me?
You had to get past the gatekeepers.
Yeah, and they're not just the gatekeepers. They were the yes people, they were the ones that gave authorization. And they were clearly distrustful, and reasonably, actually. I was part of an industry that didn't do well by charitable organizations. And so I ended up writing my first book because I thought, well, how do I prove I'm in? How do I share some wisdom that I've gained through research about the whole giving process and the philanthropic journey? And how can I maybe get 5 minutes of their time? Board. And what ended up happening is the boards gave me an hour of their time. They allowed me in when I couldn't get in before, when I was just the advisor trying to get business. And then I turned into the author trying to help them and serve them. Suddenly, the whole thing was turned on its head, and I got into the rooms I needed to get into. I got working with the charities in the way that we needed to in order to make that big difference. And in 6 years, we gave back $12.5 million charity. So it kind of worked.
Amazing. It was funny because it's something that just came up with, I'm designing a course. It's called Design Your Beautiful Life, Build Your Epic Empire. And part of that empire might just be you're an artist and you want to build your studio. You might have the market might be your empire, but for some people it's going to be having 100 employees. But how are you giving back to the community? Where's your philanthropy? So we should talk about that some more, because I need a piece on that. And guy.
Absolutely, I'm kind of the guy. And then I ended up writing another book because people asked me if the things I taught them were in this book, and I said no. And my wife said, well, you got to write that other book. So I ended up doing another one, and then another one. And then I got asked to be an author in a big book, like the lead author, the expert. And now I'm doing number 5. So
does your wife have a book yet?
Pardon me?
Does your wife have a book out yet?
No. And if you ask her if she's read them all, she'll say yes, and then she'll wink. But the interesting thing about the whole book process is I was very proud when I did my first book. And it is quite an accomplishment. It's an amazing, any author, anyone who's written a book will tell you it's a hell of an accomplishment, because it's very difficult to finish a book. It's easy to start one, very difficult to finish one for so many reasons. Mostly because
books started. I have workbooks. I've gotten finished my workbooks for my courses. That I found easy, but finishing the book, because there's such an emotional journey to start it.
Oh, totally.
And then you're like, oh, okay, I've crapped all that stuff from my childhood out on the page, and then you're like, okay, you can stay there.
Yeah, you can stay there. And you're better. You're better at the end than you were at the beginning. So you begin to tinker the whole way through. So getting it done and just finishing is really key. And it's funny you mentioned that it's just, you put it out there and it stays there. One thing about often with authors is once we've got it out of ourselves, once we put it on paper, that catharsis that happens.
Exactly the word I was thinking.
Quite frankly. And I think it's probably like rock musicians. I can't believe you play the same songs for 30 years, that you go on stage for, because that's what people want to hear. But once you've written it, once you've put it out there, it's kind of behind you. You've gotten it out, right? And you've cleaned some space in your brain. So it's really cool.
One of the stories that I really always tune into, and I've always been that has always made me wary about what story do you want to tell, is there was an author that she wrote about her sister's suicide.
Oh, yeah.
And then she went out to do the talks. And 3 years later, she's still talking about her sister's death, right?
Yeah, it can be kind of difficult.
Moving past it and into the next, so I've always been very cautious about, what you write about. And if you want it to go big, you better think out what the full process is of how you're going to also move through whatever you're writing about, and making sure it's in the right space and the right vibration. It's interesting.
You're absolutely right, which is exactly. So I'm, one of the reasons we're talking is because I'm holding this workshop on the 5th of February, right? And I do this every few months. It's called a book. Your book is the best business card. And really it just goes back to that experience I had when I first started trying to help give back, and how powerful writing a book was. And then, the problem with the first book is it cost me $32,000. And I say cost because it was painful. I hired someone on retainer, and then they had me hire a writer, then they had me hire an editor, and blah, blah, blah. And they had all these black box things that you don't know about writing. And so you think you're just going to charge forward. And after 10 months, I had a book I was so bitter about the process. The experience just tore me apart. And I had that truckload of books. I had that mistake, that carload of books that you're trying to schlep out of your trunk of your car for
the
months
original Wade
afterwards.
Dyer story where he drove all over the country and slept
Yeah.
in books. But it worked.
Because basically someone said it's cheaper to order from a Chinese, printing house. And so you get your books for a couple of bucks max, but you buy 1,000 of them in bulk and you put your money out there in front. And like, I don't recommend anything that I did in my first year can be done, which I did a few years later, 5 years later. I wrote 2 books for $3,000 all in.
Yeah.
Right? So
or I've heard of other people that all got asked to join in a book and then they had no rights to the content that they'd written into the book. And I was like, well, that doesn't really work with social media. You want to be able to promote the book. You can't promote your own stuff.
Totally.
They didn't read their contracts, right?
Absolutely. And you do, so, you can really do this. If you're there for promote yourself and position yourself as the subject matter authority, right? Which is really, if you're trying to buy against anybody else, your tiny little book, if it's just a tiny book, is better than the book your competitors never write. So if you're actually vying for an opportunity, a speaking opportunity, a working gig, whatever it is, people will pretty much always choose the author over the person who isn't an author.
Yeah. So as my coaching clients here, just get shit done.
Yeah. Just get shit done.
Stop thinking about it. Just get shit done.
Right.
You can always write another one because version 10 is going to be way better than version 1 or none.
And I know a lot of guys will say that size, your size matters, but it doesn't in a book. You just get your book done. It doesn't matter if it's large or small. It just doesn't matter. It matters that it's done, it's published, and it's out there. And when you asked me earlier about publishing, okay, there's a couple trains of thought. I work with people to figure that out, because if it's a business, if you're trying to position yourself in your business and your goal really is with a certain niche marketplace to really position yourself top of mind with that group and become known as the authority, then self-publishing satisfies checks a lot of those boxes, right?
Yeah.
If you really want to go on the great big speaking tour and you want to sell books, if your goal is to sell books, then you go through a publisher. And a publisher will cost you, and they'll cost you $10,000. They'll cost you $3,000 for hard, true value, and $7,000 for your experience of going through it. Right? So, and that's just because it's
$7,000 for shaking their hand.
Yeah, let me tell you, it doesn't have to be that painful financially. And a lot of people think a publisher will do the next promotion once it's done, and that's a publicist and a PR person that does that. So they're two different things. So you're endeavoring to get your book done, and then you kind of end up with a publisher. You end up like, my publisher wasn't very good on my first book. In fact, they went out of business shortly after. So I'm here with a book, and they own the rights to sell my book anywhere online that they want. I can sell it anywhere in hard copy, but they have the rights. So I don't own my book. They're nowhere, and they didn't help me do anything to get out there in the marketplace. So self-publishing for a business person, entrepreneur, and even a speaker is a great opportunity for you to get published and get your book out there and own control of it. Mm-hmm. It's difficult in the best of times to sell books. So being a self-publisher.
They say that most authors on Amazon, for example, never sell 100 books.
Oh, heck no. I mean, there's the old bestseller on Amazon, and really it's the bestseller in the category on that day, right? So it's a pack of BS.
Yeah,
and
we've all been part of the book launch that's like, make sure you buy my book in this niche from da-da-da-da-da
yeah.
o'clock to 5 o'clock so they can get that bestseller logo, which we know is bullshit.
Totally, right? But the key is not everyone knows it's BS. So that, there is some value in it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And it's how you use your book, how you've positioned your book. And you can see, I've got this floral, this canyon picturesque book that I thought was like, it's about Oprah and Branson and YouTube and Bono and their philanthropy. But then I realized this wasn't a business oriented book. And so my next one was a business oriented book. Taught people, positioned me as the authority in the financial industry. And it taught people that I could help them get from A to B in their philanthropic journey. So you also learn a little bit about how you position your book so that it says the right things. It's not ambiguous. It does say exactly what the reader is going to benefit and how they're going to benefit and how you're going to help them.
I like it.
Right? It's great. And I said after my first, I'd never write another, and now and my fifth is kind of a fifth, sixth, and seventh. It's like 3 books in one. It's just, I haven't separated out yet.
You get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's so much I help people learn in my workshop. Your book is the best business card. I'm going to hold it February 5th here in Squamish, BC, at the Brennan Park Rec Center in the Tantalus room. Okay, so it's really easy to see. There's details on my Facebook page, details on growgetgive.com website.
Well, we can post them in the Entrepreneur Collective as an event if you would like.
Oh, that would be lovely. I'd
for
love
anybody
to have.
that's watching on here, this is live in the Entrepreneur Collective Facebook group. So if you just go to the website, theentrepreneurcollective.com, at some point in the next day or two, we'll have this up for sure.
Awesome.
And maybe there's a little worksheet or something we could add in there for them to get started on.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're working with 4 authors in the corridor right now. We started in the summer with 2, and then in the fall with another 2. And these people are going to make massive impact in the businesses and the niches they work in. So what I do help people learn, of course, is how not to do what I did, which is the 30,000. That's a no-no. You never have to do that again. A few $1,000 is going to be required, and there's very specific things that need to be done. The other thing is how do you position yourself? Like, it's one thing to know that maybe you have some information worth sharing, because that's the core of it. The second thing, to understand how it fits into, if it's a business or a personal marketing standpoint, how does it fit? How do you consider it, and how do you build your content? Is it like you said, a workbook? Is it a manual? Is it just a story, a book of? How is that going to move your audience? Why did they want to even pick it up, or why would they consider you an authority for doing it?
One of the nicest things that I've gotten as a gift is I've always had the I'm going to forget about the name of it, our art book. It's about writing. Anyway, it's about daily writing. So it's the I want to say the art of war, but a war of art, but that's not it. Anyway, Kathy gave it to me as a gift, but it also came with the workbook, because it's the book that's been famous since the 70s. And then they paired it up with the workbook, and it was just like the perfect match for what it was. Because really, this was something you didn't want to write in, and then they gave you something you could write all your notes in. And usually I'm just writing all over the pages. So I thought that was a perfect blend.
I really do. I do books as well. I do them. Books are messy with me, and I prefer a physical copy because I'm all over it, right? And I have difficulty even with audiobooks, because I'll get to a point and I want to write it down and go back to that section, and it's just not the same. A lot of people prefer audiobooks because of coding and that, but
I've actually redesigned my journals so that I've got a blank space in the journal that I publish that you can actually just sit and take notes and just list things. It's just got little dots. It's not in the to-do sections or anything, because sometimes you just want to write. You might be just listening to something, you write notes down, but you want to be able to find it later. So I put it on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
It's exactly that. I think books are there to be messy, and I like having physical books. It's just one of those things.
I just had to get one out of the library, and it's like,
yeah, that's the thing. You can't bring the library book back with all my notes in it. And so,
but sometimes they catch you.
Totally, you just keep having to take it out all the time. Writing a book is, for me, it's actually the ways I think that anyone should ever learn. School academics is really important. I went to university, got a Anyssa degree. I don't do that. I do business coaching, right? And I did financial services for 20 years. The places where people, and I was talking about this earlier this week, and it was this University of Hard Knocks, right? And the idea that life gives you a great tuition, but the saying that, school teaches you and then gives you a test. You learn a lesson in school and then get a test, and in life you get a test first and then you learn the lesson, right? And you don't have to do that all the time. Like, we all have kind of went into those, hit those brick walls, but we don't have to all the time. And where I realized at 10, 11 years ago was it's all in books. And I don't know why it took me so long in my career to really, really dig in. Like maybe 20 years ago.
That's part of the process of education, right? Like I didn't go to university till I was 29, so I think I have a bit of a unique view, because I've got a brother who will tell my kids, you don't need to go to university. And I'm like, but you never went, so you don't get to have an opinion. Because part of what I found at university was a community, B, communication. Like if I'm going to hire someone who hasn't, maybe there, and I'm not saying there aren't outliers that can go study in books, but when you go study with someone else who has an outside opinion, and you learn to debate your own opinion with someone else, with a professor who's going to challenge you, and other students who are going to be okay with disagreeing with you. In life, people don't generally disagree with you when you have an opinion. And so that's the beauty of going through university, is learning to be around people with a different opinion. And so you learn about society that way too. And I really think that is part of what's going to be a problem, because unlike, for example, Congress that used to all read the same, in the US, we're in Canada, but all of those government bodies used to all read the same newspaper. Now they're all going out and they're reading their own newspapers online or whatever. They're all getting different information, right?
Right.
And so part of the challenge now is, how are we going to build communities? And that's why Esther, I'm going to remember her last name. She's a sex therapist, couples therapist, but now she's taking all of her work and having to put it into the workplace, because people are taking what used to be relationship language and putting it into the workplace, because they don't know how to work with people, because they haven't necessarily gone and taken the education. It doesn't really matter what you take in university. You learn to put up with and debate and challenge and be around other people. And that might end up being our missing link eventually.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Back 30 years ago, I had very stubborn belief about university, that a learning institution of higher academia. Like I even came up academic snob through phys ed, like I was in biomechanics and emergency care and sport med. That was and so I was kind of looked down my nose at the people who went to teach phys ed, which is incorrect back then, right? I had a very specific belief set about college and university, that it had to happen. And over the last 30 years, the evolution of post-secondary learning is really fantastic. It's a phenomenal thing. But at the end of the day, every single thing you ever need to know can be learned in books. And that's a beautiful thing to understand, is that everything has been written about at somebody. And maybe it's not books.
But the challenge is, just like when the books were first written, when the Bible was first written, people weren't allowed to read it themselves because they didn't understand the language. So you might read the book, but do you have the language and the vocabulary to understand the intention of the author? And that's going to be the missing piece, that without that group setting to challenge each other on what the intention of the writing is, we're going to lose that. Everyone's reading individually versus reading as a group and challenging what the meaning of what is written.
I completely agree with that. And those post-secondary institutional settings give people a foundation of empirical thinking. So they believe that facts are important, right? And the proof and evidence and the process, the scientific process to get to facts and evidence matters. And that's an important—
go through fake news to get to it.
True, absolutely. So, I look at books, and reading became, I became a better reader because I became an author. I became a better author because I became a better reader. And so it just keeps feeding itself. And
I totally agree with that. Once you've got the skills, then you can build on that with the books. But I think there's going to be a missing piece of people trying to understand on their own. Hence, we have—
You got it. And that was my next criteria. Is the other massive way that people learn is with coaches or mentors. Being people who know what you don't. Really, let's just say—
Hence the mastermind groups. I'm just certified with Tony Robbins as a mastermind group leader. Got my little certificate. Very excited.
Ding, ding, ding.
But it's not that I haven't been doing it for a long time, but it's going through a process and being with people that have learned a process and were willing to teach it back to you, because that is the new learning, is going to be in those groups with other people who've done it before you and learning through experience. So absolutely, especially like your book.
Because you don't have to make your mistakes. Like you don't have to spend $30,000 on a book. I did. I know better. I can teach people how not to do that, right? I've been in the potholes. I can teach you where the potholes are. Everyone's going to have their own little mistakes. They're going to have their challenges, but I could probably keep 90% of the people I coach and train and listen to me away from the ones that are going to cost them the most and waste the most time and energy. And so if we can save you the money, time, and energy, and you can devote that to, imagination, innovation, and creativity, now you've really got something. You've got a real momentum that you can carry forward and make whatever impact that you're hoping to make in life. So, I really appreciate you just spending some time and giving me an opportunity to.
Well, I'm glad we arranged. Was it like, I know I've been up since 4 this morning, so I think you must have been on Facebook at the same time when we started.
I was up early. Yeah, I was up early just checking to see how the roads were. I chickened out. I figured a 3-hour round trip for a 1-hour meeting wasn't worth it. It wasn't highly important in that way. So, but I would have probably given up an entire day if I had a whole day to go snowboarding today. It would have been great. The powder, oh my gosh. But that wasn't the case. So
shoveling champagne powder was lovely this morning.
That was easy. You just brush it off. It's like so good. Yeah. Just no one drive on it before you get that chance.
Well, that was a problem, but anyway.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank you because, it was kind of fortuitous that we had a chance to connect today and make this happen as well. And I know that you're doing pretty amazing things with your entrepreneur groups and your women's groups. Like, it's an amazing community that you're building and a culture of giving back intellectually as well as just, impact wise. So I think it's great. I think it's great what you're doing.
It's building those deep relationships over time that, that people who aren't in like a chamber of commerce, because I've been the member of many chambers of commerce where you really you build these beautiful relationships because you each show up for a dinner once a month. And then over time, all of a sudden one day you're sitting across the mayor who's now running the province, or it's amazing right. People that you meet in those groups. And so for smaller entrepreneurs who don't spend the money to get into a chamber, or they don't have a business license yet or whatever, this is a great way to get started. And then also we have mastermind group as well, my inner circle. And so, yeah, it's been amazing to build and grow that. And thanks for recognizing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what we do with my groups, my Speak to Sell and Whistler and Squamish. My coaching clients, only people now, I used to have an open mastermind. We only work with people who are in the coaching circle, who are in the family, who work with me. Mm-hmm. And then, I have a summit every 6 months or so that we do that is a 2-day deep dive into business and entrepreneurism, how to grow your business.
Next one coming up in May?
April 27th and 28th. I was going to do 4th and 5th of May, but we're going to lock in the 27th and 28th of April. And we're extending it. Like, we do an activity. It's usually a surprise activity in the afternoon, and it's something somewhat physical. It's not usually too demanding, but just takes people out their comfort zone. Then we're going to add a special celebrity guest speaker in the evening on the Monday, and then on the Tuesday is a full day. And, brains get full and you get, a ton. Basically, you're getting all the wisdom that's in here. And the beautiful thing, Anyssa, is that this book, the whole process of writing books, I was one of those guinea pigs. I was that person who said, I want to do things differently. How do I do it in a homogenous industry? And how do I help people? And my journey of getting coached and reading and then writing books and doing my own thing, and coming out the other end with a business that was 10 times bigger with 12.5 million of charitable impact. Like, it was really overwhelming. And when you think about it, how I never thought I could be able to do that. Right.
Well, I think it comes back to also, I'm going to go, just because we both have to go really quickly, I'm going to bring it back to that book, the E-Myth book, Michael Gerber. I've done his dreaming room, and I've started multi-million-dollar businesses with E-Myth Mastery. And it's about having a system. Everything about E-Myth is building a system, having system processes, so that now you've got one book, you've got a process. People have learned from you what the process is. They've saved the money, and they can build on those successes with just implementing the system that you're going to teach them. And that's
totally
what it's all about.
And so think about it. Life lesson of doing it wrong and spending 30 grand, or just invest $97. Go to your book is the best business card. It's on my Facebook page, or it's on my growgetgive.com events page. And, it's 3 hours invested of your time to learn some stuff about why you wouldn't write a book. And $97 is a pretty small price to pay for that. It'll
Maybe we'll have
save
to
you,
host-
if anything, it'll
we'll
save you
host you to do that up here.
$27,000. Pardon me?
Maybe we'll have to host you to do that up here as well.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be terrific. So thanks very much, Anyssa, for having me, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Yeah, we'll do this again shortly. And we'll keep working on, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the summit next time.
Take care and good luck.
Stay safe, stay warm. I'm going to go head out into the cold.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.